So, what are our responsibilities as educators? Some different ways in which we respond to the diversity in our classroom. One way is just to look at how the age, the race, the sexual orientation, the language, and to say, I know what you are by these very crude demographic characteristics. And certainly there's some information in that. But as we know, there are more differences within a group than between groups. In fact, that's why the category of race is not a helpful category. Even the category of an ethnic identity or a national identity, it's very hard to say with absolute definitiveness what an American is, or what a Greek is, or what an English person is, because the diversity within that group, everything from skin color to dialect, is much more diverse within the group than between the group. So when we're trying to address the question of diversity within a group of learners, we have to look at the identity that the learner has, what kind of dispositions, their sensibilities, what kind of life experiences, what kind of life world have they been a part of, and who do they belong with, what networks, what interests, what values do they have, and their worldviews. And also what's their way of knowing or learning, how do they engage with the world and interpersonally. A person is a combination of all those factors. Their life world, which is not, it's a lived thing. It's not explicit. It has so many components to it that any educator in any particular environment with a learner, an individual or a group, has to manage complex contexts and aspects of that learner if they want to engage them and harness their energy and enthusiasm in order that they can have time on task and transform themselves as historians or mathematicians or scientists or whatever it is that they want to be. Our task is a very important, challenging task, not one that we can always do on our own. But the first thing, of course, is to know how we ourselves are cultured, how we come to be who we are before we can understand and engage with those of us who we are responsible for transforming or serving. What are some of the principles of a productive diversity? How do we get to a state where we can have an inclusive environment and maximize the opportunities for performers? Now, as an educator, we have to read our learners, our citizens, our workers in all their humanity, to understand them in their individuality and in their uniqueness. We have to create open pathways for learning, for each learner to be able to engage and make a contribution. And we have to design pedagogies and performance systems where difference is not a barrier to recognizing the contributions that a learner could make. We have to also create space for learner, worker, and citizen agency. What do our learners in their difference bring to any environment? What does a worker bring, and what do citizens bring to the community? How can their agency be harnessed for meeting all our goals? We need to allow for varied ways of learning and forms of knowledge and modes of representation that genuinely lead to equal outcomes. And we really need to know what our learners, our workers, and our citizens already know or have learned. Nobody comes in as an empty vessel. They bring knowledge and experience that we have to understand and harness. And finally, we have to create learning ecologies, social knowledge ecologies of productive diversity, where everybody in their difference can produce and contribute to the collective learning and to their individual enhancement. If we are to address diversity in a way that is in all our self-interests, it requires that we have the sensibilities of civic pluralism. That is, engage in those very difficult dialogues, the morality of compromise, to allow for multiple citizenships, to have multi-layered identities, to engage in collaborative politics for fairness and justice, not just to leave it up to others. Each of us need to collaborate with each other for those goals. To have cultural repertoires, expand our repertoires of understanding and participation. To know that the bottom, the community, needs to determine what the systems are that serve it, what we call subsidiarity and federalism. And we have to have the skills for negotiating cultural differences and facilitating understanding and inclusivity. Because in the end, all of us share the planet. There is one race, it's called the human race, and we are all part of it. And our choices determine, our individual choices and their collective effect determine whether we'll be able to live in a planet of peace and prosperity, or one in which turmoil is part of our everyday lives.